Have you ever had someone in your life who made hard things feel smaller? Not because they fixed anything, but just because they were there. Not a lover necessarily, not even a close friend at first, just a presence, a voice. Someone who showed up when showing up was the whole gift. And have you ever lost that person? Not to a fight, not to a betrayal, just to life doing what life does, pulling people in directions they didn't choose. This is that kind of story. It starts with a man who lost his sight and forgot how to be human, and a woman who came to read to him and ended up being the only light he could still find. Stay until the end, because the last scene of this story will sit with you long after it's over. Subscribe before we begin. Every week, there is a story here that will make you feel something real. Hit subscribe. Let's go. Kim Taeyang had not opened his curtains in 8 months. Not because he couldn't. Someone would have done it for him if he'd asked. But asking would have meant admitting that it mattered. That the absence of light was something he noticed. That there was a version of himself that still cared about things like mourning. There wasn't. Not anymore. He lay in a bed that cost more than most people's annual salary, in a penthouse apartment in the heart of Seoul, surrounded by a silence so complete it had texture. His phone rang constantly. Transferred calls, decisions, problems that needed his voice attached to them. He answered all of them, efficiently, without emotion. He was still, in every professional sense, functional. In every other sense, he was somewhere unreachable. The accident had been on a Tuesday. He remembered the sound most clearly. Not the impact, the sound before it. His brother Junho's laugh, mid-sentence, turning to look at Taeyang instead of the road, saying something that Taeyang could no longer remember the words of, but could still hear the shape of. The specific frequency of his brother's laugh. Then the sound that ended it. He had woken up in the hospital 3 days later to darkness that turned out to be permanent, and a room full of people who didn't know how to look at him. Junho did not wake up. 8 months later, Taeyang still had not said his brother's name out loud. Not once. Not to anyone. The caregivers came and went, 7 of them in 8 months. This was not entirely Taeyang's fault. He was not violent, not abusive. He was simply so thoroughly, completely unreachable that professional caregivers who had trained for difficult patients found themselves unprepared for a different kind of difficult. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that simply refuses to be present. They left one by one, some with resignation, some with genuine distress in their reports. One had written simply, "Patient is not interested in recovering." The agency sent an 8th. Amara Owusu arrived on a Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. She had read the file on the subway on the way over. 8 months post-accident. Bilateral vision loss, permanent. Previous brother deceased in same accident. 7 previous caregivers. No noted aggression. No noted cooperation. She had folded the file and put it in her bag. She had brought a book. Not a medical text. Not a therapy workbook. A novel. A Ghanaian novel her grandmother had sent her 3 months ago, with a note that said, "For when soul gets too loud." She had been carrying it in her bag unread, because Seoul had not gotten quiet enough yet. She knocked on the apartment door at 8 a.m. exactly. Park Soo-min opened it. Efficient, professionally warm, visibly relieved in the way people are when they have been managing an impossible situation and someone new has just arrived. "Ms. Owusu," he said, "thank you for coming." "Amara is fine," she said. She looked past him into the apartment. All the curtains drawn. Lights off except the hallway. The particular quality of air that comes from a space that hasn't been opened in a long time. She nodded slowly. "Where is he?" she said. He was in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed in the dark, dressed. She noticed this, that he had dressed himself, that somewhere under all of this was a man who still maintained certain standards for reasons he probably couldn't articulate. Phone in his hand, thumb moving across the screen with the practiced speed of someone using assistive technology. He didn't look up. He couldn't. But he tracked her. She could see it, the slight tilt of his head, sound mapping her location. "You're the 8th, he said. His voice was low and flat. Not rude, just emptied of performance. "I know," she said. "The others lasted between 3 days and 6 weeks. "I read that," she said. A pause. "And you still came," he said. "I'm here, aren't I?" she said simply. Something in his expression shifted. Not warmly, more like recalibration. A minor adjustment to an expectation. "I don't need to be read to," he said. "I have assistive technology. I don't need to be talked to therapeutically. I have a professional for that who I don't speak to. I don't need company. I need someone to manage the household, liaise with Sumin when needed, and be present in case of emergency." Amara looked at him for a moment. "Okay," she said. "Where's your kitchen?"
The first week was exactly what he had described. She managed the household. She liaised with Sumin. She was present. She did not attempt therapy. She did not attempt warmth. She was simply efficient and quiet and there. On the 8th day, she was sitting in the living room during her afternoon break, reading her grandmother's novel, when he appeared in the doorway. He stood there for a moment, listening. "What are you reading?" he said. She looked up. "A novel," she said. "Ghanaian. My grandmother sent it." A pause. "What is it about?" he said. "A woman who walks from one end of her village to the other to deliver a message that turns out to be unnecessary," Amara said. "But the walk changes everything." He was quiet for a moment. "That sounds frustrating," he said. "It's beautiful," she said. He stood there another moment. Then he turned and went back to his room. The next afternoon he appeared in the doorway again at the same time. Amara was reading. He didn't say anything. He just stood there. She turned back 2 pages and read out loud. She did not ask him if he wanted her to. She did not make it a thing. She just began reading, at the paragraph she was at, in a voice that was neither performance nor monotone, just her voice, the way she read when she read for herself. He stood in the doorway for the entire chapter. Then he went back to his room. Neither of them mentioned it. By the 3rd week, it was simply part of the day. After lunch, living room. She read, he sat, not in the doorway anymore, on the chair across from the sofa, which he had moved himself on day 11, dragging it 2 feet to the left in the direction of her voice, without saying a word about it. She did not comment on the chair. She simply began reading when he sat down. The novel was 340 pages. She read slowly. Not artificially slowly, she just read the way she read, which was carefully, giving each sentence its weight. There were afternoons where she stopped at a particularly good line and said nothing for a moment, just let it sit. On one of those afternoons, page 112, a line about a woman watching her mother's hands and realizing she had been looking at her own future, Taeyang said quietly, "Read that again." She read it again. Silence. "My mother had hands like that," he said, unprompted, unguarded, like the sentence had surprised him on its way out. Amara did not make it significant, did not lean in, did not therapize. She turned the page and kept reading. Later she would understand that this was the thing that had kept her where 7 others hadn't. Not skill, not training. She simply knew, the way her grandmother had always known, that some people need to talk sideways, that the story is not always the point. Sometimes the story is just the door. By the second month, they had finished the novel. She had started a second one, then a third. She had begun ordering them from a small Ghanaian bookshop online, receiving them in the mail and reading the descriptions to him before she began each one so he could choose. He always chose, quickly, decisively. She noticed he preferred stories where things were not resolved easily. "You like complicated endings," she said one afternoon. "I like honest ones," he said. She absorbed this. "The complicated ones are usually the honest ones," she said. He was quiet for a moment. "Yes," he said. "That's exactly it." He began talking. Not much, not therapeutically, sideways, the way she had learned he did, through the stories, through small associations that the books unlocked in him, like keys finding the right doors. She learned things. That he had wanted to be an architect before his family's world claimed him at 19, that he still thought in structures, in load-bearing walls and sight lines, and the relationship between a space and the people who moved through it, that Junho had been the musician of the family, that every song Taeyang now heard on the radio or television or phone was filtered through the question of whether Junho would have liked it, that he had not been to his brother's grave, that he didn't know if he could. She learned these things the way you learn things about people who don't know they're telling you, in fragments, over weeks, slipped between paragraphs. She filed them all carefully, the way you keep things that belong to someone else. He learned things about her too, that she was from Accra, that her grandmother had raised her after her parents died when she was 9, a car accident, which she mentioned once and then moved past in the same tone she used for everything, level and honest, that she had 6 plants in her small apartment in Mapogu that she talked to every morning, that she had been in Seoul for 3 years, that she missed Ghanaian food with a specific and detailed intensity. She could describe her grandmother's kontomire stew in a way that made the air in the room smell different, that she sent money home every month, that she said this the way people say things they have decided not to be complicated about, that she laughed at unexpected things and went completely quiet at sad ones, which was the opposite of most people. He noticed all of it. He was, in the absence of sight, noticing everything. One afternoon in the 3rd month, the book ended mid-chapter. She had miscalculated the pages remaining, and the silence that followed was different from the usual end-of-chapter silences. "That's the end," she said. A pause. "Already," he said. Not a question, just the word, landing with a weight she filed away. "I'll order the next one tonight," she said. "Amara," he said. She looked up from the book, even though he couldn't see her do it. "What made you become a caregiver?" he said. She was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother," she said. "She took care of everyone around her whole life without being asked, without being paid, without being thanked. She just saw what people needed and moved toward it." A pause. "I thought if I was going to do what she did, I might as well be trained for it." He was quiet for a long time. "She sounds remarkable," he said. "She is," Amara said. Present tense, deliberate. Another silence. "Is she well?" he said. A pause that was just slightly too long. "She's my grandmother," Amara said. "She's everything." She opened her bag and reached for the next book before it had arrived, just to have something to do with her hands. The call from Dio came on a Thursday night. She was home. She was sitting on her kitchen floor eating rice she had cooked at midnight because she couldn't sleep and the plants needed company, and sometimes the floor was the only honest place in an apartment. Her brother's voice on the phone had that specific quality that voices get when the person has been holding something for too long and the holding has started to show. "It's getting worse," he said. She already knew. She had known from the last 3 calls, from the way her grandmother sounded in the background, from the particular silence in Dio's voice where the details should have been. "How much worse?" she said. He told her. She sat on the kitchen floor for a long time after she hung up. She did the math she had been avoiding doing. The medical costs against what she was sending home, against what she was saving, against the cost of a flight, and the cost of staying once she got there, and the cost of her apartment here if she didn't give it up, and the cost of giving it up if she couldn't come back. The math was not complicated. It was just final. She told Sumin the next morning before she went in. She could not tell Taeyang directly. She did not know why. She just knew she couldn't walk into that room and say it to his face that tracked her by sound, that tilted toward her voice, that had opened slowly over 4 months, like something that had forgotten it was allowed to. She gave Sumin 6 weeks' notice. She went in. She sat down. He came and sat in his chair. She opened the book. She read. Sumin told him that same evening. Taeyang was at his desk taking a call when Sumin appeared in the doorway and waited. This was their system. Sumin appeared, Taeyang registered the footstep weight and pattern, and wrapped up the call. "What?" Taeyang said. Sumin told him. 6 weeks. Family emergency in Ghana. She had given her full notice, professional to the end. Taeyang said nothing. "Sir?" Sumin said carefully. "Should I contact the agency?" "Not yet," Taeyang said. "Sir, I said not yet." Sumin left. Taeyang sat at his desk in the dark room in the silent apartment and did not move for a very long time. He said nothing to her. For 6 weeks he said nothing. He came every afternoon and sat in his chair and listened. He asked questions about the books, good questions, the kind that made her stop and think before answering. He said the small things he had learned to say, the sideways things, the things that had grown slowly in the space between the paragraphs. He said all of it. He did not say the one thing, because he had decided, in the quiet of the first night after Sumin told him, sitting with it the way he sat with everything now, in the complete dark that had stopped being a punishment somewhere around month 2 and become simply the condition of his life. He had decided that she had a brother who needed her, and a grandmother who was her everything, and a life that had been on hold in a country that was not hers for 3 years, and he was not going to be the thing that made leaving harder. He was not going to say it. He would just listen. For 6 weeks, he would just listen. And he did.
The last day was a Thursday. She arrived at 8 a.m. as she always did. She had not told him it was the last day. He was not supposed to know she knew. The handover had been arranged with Sumin. The new caregiver would arrive Monday. She managed the household as she always managed it. She liaised with Sumin. She was present. After lunch, she sat down in the living room and opened the book. He came and sat in his chair. They were 4 chapters from the end. She read. Her voice was even. She gave each sentence its weight. At a particularly good line, she paused the way she always paused. He said, "Read that again," the way he always said it. She read it again. They finished chapter 31. She closed the book on the bookmark. She looked at him. He was sitting in his chair the way he always sat, slightly forward, face tilted slightly toward her, the particular quality of attention he gave to reading that she had come to recognize as the most unguarded he ever was. "Same time tomorrow?" he said, the way he always said it. She looked at him for a long moment. "Same time tomorrow," she said. She picked up her bag. She walked to the door. She stopped. She turned back and looked at him sitting in his chair in the living room of his dark apartment, face still tilted slightly toward the place her voice had been. She opened her mouth. She closed it. She left. On the table beside his chair, she had left the book. bookmarked at chapter 32, 4 chapters from the end. She had also left, tucked inside the back cover, a folded piece of paper. She did not know if he would find it. She did not know if anyone would read it to him. She wrote it anyway. You probably already know I'm not coming tomorrow. I'm sorry I couldn't say it out loud. I tried 3 times and the words wouldn't come, which has never happened to me before with any words. I want you to know that the reading was never a job to me. From the second week, it was something I did because I needed to as much as you did, maybe more. You should go to Junho's grave, not because you're ready. You won't be ready. Go because he was your brother, and he would have gone to yours. Finish the book. The ending is honest. You'll like it. Amara. Sumin found the book the next morning when he came in. He stood in the living room holding it for a moment. Then he carried it to Taeyang's room and knocked. Come in, Taeyang said. Sumin came in. He placed the book on the desk. She left it. There's a note inside the back cover. Silence. Read it to me, Taeyang said. Sumin read it. The room was very quiet when he finished. Sir, Sumin said carefully. Leave me, Taeyang said. Sumin left. Taeyang sat with the book in his hands for a long time. He ran his fingers over the cover, over the spine, over the pages, all of them, the ones they had read and the 4 they hadn't. Then he did something he had not done in 8 months. He opened the curtains. He couldn't see the light that came in, but he stood at the window and let it fall on his face and thought about a woman who had walked into his dark apartment with a novel her grandmother had sent her and had simply begun. Not fixing, not managing, just reading. He thought about her voice on the line about his mother's hands, the pause that had been just slightly too long when he'd asked about her grandmother, the way she laughed at unexpected things. He thought about 6 weeks of mornings where she had come in knowing and said nothing and read anyway. He thought about what that cost. He called Sumin back in. Find her, he said. Sumin paused. Sir, she may already be. Find her, Taeyang said again. And get the car. Where are we going? A long pause. Junho's grave, first. She had been home for 11 days when he found her. Not at her door, not dramatically. He found her the way she would have wanted to be found, quietly, without announcement, in a way that gave her the choice. Sumin had traced her through the caregiver agency, and then through a contact in Accra, and then through a hospital where her brother was being treated, and had left a message with the front desk. Mr. Kim Taeyang is in Accra. He is at the hotel near the hospital. He is not asking you to come. He wanted you to know he was here. She read the message sitting in the hospital corridor outside Dayo's room. She read it 3 times. Then she called Sumin. Why is he here? She said. He wanted to finish the book, Sumin said simply. He said he couldn't read the ending without the right voice. Amara sat in the hospital corridor for a long time. Then she stood up, straightened her clothes, walked to the door. She found him in the hotel lobby. He was sitting in a chair near the window, Sumin a respectful distance away, in the particular posture she recognized immediately, slightly forward, face tilted just enough to track sound. She stood at the entrance for a moment, then she walked toward him. He heard her footsteps, she knew he did, she had learned his tells, and his face tilted toward her, and something in his expression did the thing it had started doing around month 2, the thing she had never named. She stopped in front of him. You came to Accra, she said. You left 4 chapters, he said. She looked at him. Taeyang, she said. You flew to Accra. I know where I am, he said quietly. You can't. I know what I can't do, he said. I came anyway. She sat down beside him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. How is your brother? He said. Improving, she said. The word was the most complicated, simple word she had ever said. And your grandmother? Stubborn, she said. Magnificent. He almost smiled. the almost smile she had collected over months like something rare. "I went to Junho's grave." She went very still. "Before we flew," he said. "Sumin drove me. I stood there for—" He stopped, started again. "I talked to him. I don't know how long. Sumin waited by the car." Amara did not say anything. She knew enough about him now that this was not the moment for anything. "I said his name," Taeyang said quietly, out loud, for the first time. She pressed her lips together. "Good," she said. Her voice was very steady and very full at the same time. He turned his face toward her. "Your note, you said the reading was never a job to you." "It wasn't," she said. From the second week, he had memorized it. "Yes," she said. He was quiet for a moment. "It was never just reading to me either, from the second week." The lobby was quiet around them. Outside, the Accra afternoon moved past the window, loud and golden, and completely indifferent to what was happening inside. "I can't ask you to come back," he said. "Your family is here, your grandmother, your brother. This is where you belong right now." "I know," she said. "But I needed you to know that the 4 chapters—" He stopped. It wasn't about the book. She looked at him, at this man who had flown to a country he had never been to, blind, to sit in a hotel lobby and say the thing he had held for 6 weeks. "I know," she said again, softer this time. She took the book out of her bag. She had brought it. She did not know why she had brought it when she left the house that morning. She just had. She opened it to chapter 32. She began to read. Right there, in the hotel lobby in Accra, with the afternoon light coming through the window, and her brother improving down the road, and her grandmother at home being stubborn and magnificent, and the most feared man in Seoul sitting beside her with his face tilted toward her voice. She read all 4 chapters. The ending was honest. He liked it.
She stayed in Accra for 4 months. He stayed for 3 weeks. Then responsibility pulled him back. It always would. That was the nature of the world he ran. But he left Sumin's number written in her phone under a contact name she had entered herself. The man who flew to Accra for 4 chapters. He called every evening at 9 p.m. Accra time. Not always for long. Sometimes just to ask what she was reading. Sometimes to tell her something Junho-shaped had happened during the day. A song on the radio. A structure he'd passed that his brother would have described in a specific way. Small things that needed somewhere to go. She always answered. When Dio was well enough, when her grandmother had stabilized into a stubborn and magnificent new normal, when Accra had given her back what Seoul had slowly been taking, she got on a plane. She did not tell him she was coming. She knocked on the apartment door at 8 a.m. on a Wednesday. Sumin opened it. His face did the thing faces do when something hoped for arrives. From the bedroom, the sound of a chair, footsteps, the particular pattern of footsteps she had learned like a language. He appeared in the hallway, face tilted, tracking. "You're early," he said. "I'm exactly on time," she said. A pause. "There's a new book," he said. "Sumin ordered it. It arrived yesterday." "What's it about?" she said. "I don't know," he said. "I waited." She walked past him into the living room. She opened the curtains. The Seoul morning came in, sharp and cold, and full of light he couldn't see, but stood in anyway, the way he had learned to stand in things he couldn't see. She sat down on the sofa. She heard his chair move 2 feet to the left in the direction of her voice, and smiled at a wall he couldn't see her smile at. She opened the book. She began to read. Some people come into your life to fix something. Some people come into your life and become something. Amara came to read. That was enough. That was everything. Taeyang lost his sight and thought he had lost everything. Amara came to read to him and ended up being the only light he could still find. She left without saying goodbye because some goodbyes are too heavy for doorways. And he flew to Accra for 4 chapters because some things cannot wait for the right moment. If this story moved you, if you felt something in that hotel lobby scene, if the note she left in the book broke something open in you, if his voice saying Junho's name for the first time made you stop breathing, subscribe right now. This is what we do here every week. Stories that feel like real life because they should. Drop a comment below. What moment hit you hardest? Was it the note she left in the book? Was it him saying Junho's name out loud for the first time? Was it her reading all 4 chapters in the hotel lobby in Accra? Or was it the chair moving 2 feet to the left in the direction of her voice? Tell me below. Catch you in the next one.